Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to another episode of the Tigers Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Schulte, and if you are wondering where the music is not existent today. For whatever reason, I'm getting an error when I try to import music files into Reaper, so it's being a pain in the ass, and I'm just not going to mess with it. I want to get this podcast done because I have some time, and it needs to be done. So we're just going to leave it as is. We're going to put some compression on this little bad boy, and we're going to normalize it, and you're going to get an all-vocal version of me today, no background music, and we're going to be straight up balling that way. So, with that, I wanted to start things out with the injury report because I do that a lot. That's generally how we do things around here. So we're going to go ahead and get into that. We'll start with the good news, and it is good news. Tarik Skubal threw two live batting practice sessions since the time that I last recorded a pod. He threw two live batting practice sessions. His fastball was up around 97, 98. He had everything. I don't necessarily think he had pinpoint command of everything. He wasn't in game shape, but obviously he was able to throw all of his pitches. His slider, his changeup, his fastball, and was doing okay. I believe he threw 20 pitches or 25 pitches. He threw to Jake Rogers. Actually, the way AJ Hinch made it sound on Tuesday evening was that he threw what would have been the equivalent of 2 innings of live batting practice. So my guess is he threw to 6 hitters. I don't know. I don't know how that works, but They said that it was the equivalent of two innings of work, and he reported no soreness while he was pitching. My guess is he reported no soreness yesterday, which is the good sign because had he had issues yesterday, then that would have been a problem. So basically, the way it works with pitchers is you go out and you pitch. And you're going to be sore the next day because you were using your arm, and you're using your arm in a way that it really physically wasn't intended to be used. And so what happens is that you're sore the next day, but it's a soreness that you're used to. It's a soreness that you know. It's like, okay, this is normal. This is what I've dealt with all my life as far as my pitching is concerned, and how, you know, the soreness associated with that. So, so that happens, and you go through that, and you deal with that, and then you start doing your stretching and working out on to your next bullpen session, and then your next hopefully game action, depending on where you're at. So somebody like Alex Faedo, who is a starting pitcher right now and in the rotation, he pitched on Monday. He's going to be sore on Tuesday, but then hopefully Wednesday he's feeling better, and that's going to be when his bullpen session is. And then Thursday he's going to be off, and then Friday, which will be this tomorrow, because this is recorded on Thursday, the 1st of June. So Friday he'll pitch, he'll go out and Saturday he'll pitch. So that's how it works. That's how they judge these things. So now I don't know if Skubal is going to throw a bullpen today or tomorrow. Which would be on his normal schedule, if he was actually starting games. But I do know that they're talking about getting him ready to go on a rehab assignment. And when they do that, that means he's got 30 days So the equivalent of 6 starts, 5 to 6 starts to get himself into shape. And once he does that, then he'll be back on the active roster. He'll be he'll be off of the injured list. They'll have activated him, and he will start for the Tigers. And we really need it. We'll get to that in a minute. Matt Manning actually threw his first live batting practice on Tuesday, and AJ Hinch was really happy with that because basically what he said was he showed no fear. So Matt Manning has a broken pinky toe on his right foot. That is his landing foot. That is his plant foot. And from what AJ Hinch said, he didn't look like he was scared at all or nervous at all coming off the mound, putting all of his weight onto it to throw. And he said that it was a good thing for him. He wasn't afraid to land on that foot and to put the pressure on that foot that he needed to drive through and do what he needed to do to throw his fastball and his slider and his curveball. So he's a little bit behind Skubal from the standpoint of he has a couple more live BPs to go before he can get into a rehab situation, but he's at least getting there. And again, we need him as well. And that is because Eduardo Rodriguez went on the 10-day injured list, the 15-day injured list on Monday with a ruptured pulley in his left index finger. Now, what this allows you to do is this allows you to flex your index finger. In this case, it allows you to put pressure on things. It generates pressure in the finger. So basically what it is, it's the sheath that holds the tendon in place on your finger. And he ruptured the A4 pulley. I believe there's 1, 2, 3. There's four different points that these pulleys, in which they have these pulleys, and it's basically between the first knuckle and the end of his index finger, the tip of his index finger. And there's a lot of swelling there. There's a lot of inflammation, and it's painful. Now, Adam Wainwright had this happen to him back in 2008. He was out for 6 weeks, and then he came back and hurt himself again. And I can't remember who the pitcher was in 2021 that had this same injury. He came back after 6 weeks, started pitching, hurt a pop, and hurt the same finger again, aggravated the injury. So this is a 15-day stint on the injured list. I think you'll see... I honestly think you'll see Eduardo Rodriguez transferred to the 60-day injured list because this doesn't look good. You're looking at least 6 weeks of recovery time, and then you've got to do the same thing that Matt Manning and Tarik Skubal are doing, which is ramp up. You got to begin a throwing progression. Then you got to start throwing bullpens. Then you got to start throwing live batting practice. Then you got to go on a rehab assignment. So my guess is that he's going to end up on the 60-day injured list instead of the 15-day. They're going to go through and do some MRIs and get second opinions and whatnot, and go from there. But at this point, I don't see Eduardo Rodriguez pitching again until at the very earliest mid to late July, if not later than that, probably the beginning of August. Spencer Turnbull hasn't even started a throwing progression yet. He has, of course, a neck injury and has been dealing with that. As far as we know, he's not even started a throwing progression. He's not really talking about it much, other than to say that he really should have said something to the Tigers before he had any issues. Instead of going and trying to tough his way through it, he should have just said something back in April. And you know what, Spencer? We agree with you there. So on top of that, Matt Vierling was placed on the 10-day injured list on Monday with lower back soreness, and Riley Green was placed on the 10-day injured list yesterday with a stress fracture in his lower left fibula. That's the little bone in the back of the leg that is the smaller of the two bones. And there is a stress fracture there. He's getting a second opinion. That is going to take some time. Again, that's another at least 6 to 8 weeks to heal. And then you got to go through rehab. It's a little less difficult for hitters because they don't have to go through a throwing progression and live batting practice the way pitchers do. But there's still an issue there. So in corresponding moves, Detroit brought up Reese Olson. He'll make his major league debut this weekend in Eduardo Rodriguez's spot. He is one of the Tigers' highest prospects. He's a guy that Detroit got from Milwaukee last year for Daniel Norris, and he's a strike thrower. He's a guy he's gotten a lot of strikeouts in the minors, and that's good because they're going to need all the strikeouts they can get against the White Sox this weekend. So he comes up. They brought up Braden Bristow temporarily and then sent him back down. They brought up Tyler Nevin to take Matt Vierling's spot on the roster. And Jake Marisnick was acquired in a trade for cash considerations from the Chicago White Sox. He was in AAA, but he had an opt-out, or not an opt-out, but he had a clause in his contract that said that if a major league club was looking for him and wanted him to come play for them, wanted to make a trade to get him, Chicago had to listen to that trade offer and had to go ahead and accept that trade offer if he was not going to be making the major league club anytime soon. And of course, Chicago has Gavin Sheets in the outfield. They have Luis Robert. They have Eloy Jimenez. They've got what's that clown's name? The guy that plays right field for them. I want to say AJ Pollock, but I think I'm wrong on that. No, I'm not. AJ Pollock. They've got outfielders, and that's not a problem for them. So they went ahead and traded Jake Marisnick to Detroit. He's a 9-hole hitter, but he's a defensive guy, and he's going to fit in well in the outfield. He made a couple nice plays yesterday against Texas and went 2 for 4 at the plate. So with that, let's move on to a few things. Detroit had a winning month last month. They finished 16-11 last month in 27 games. They had a winning homestand. They finished 4-3, 3 games against the White Sox that they won, 1 game against the Rangers that they won. So they dropped a series and they won a series at home. They went 2-1 against Kansas City last week in that series. So they went, if you want to compare they had a winning week because they went 5-2 in their 7 games from Monday the 29th of May to Monday the 22nd of May to Sunday the 28th. And on top of that, they ended up taking 2 divisional series, which is more important. Detroit hasn't lost a divisional series yet. They've had 4 divisional series. They are 6-9-4 in those 4 divisional series. So they're 9-4 in the division. That's their divisional record. That's looking good. So now I got to get to what do I think this team is going to be, because I said last week we'll know more after Chicago and Kansas City. And we honestly do know a little bit, but because of the injuries and whatnot, I was going to put this team at 80 wins with the way they've been playing in the division and the way that things were going, the way that Riley Green was playing, the way that Riley Green was hitting. But I honestly think now, because of the injuries to Green and to Rodriguez, Detroit's a 75-win team. This is still a 75-win team. This is a team that's right now got 26 wins and 29 losses. 26 wins and 28 losses in their 54 games. They're probably going to get another 40, 49, 50 wins. 75, 76 wins is what this team is going to get for the year. But you know what? They're going to be competitive. This division, Detroit's out by 2 games in the Central. That should tell you how bad the American League Central is. This team is going to finish 3rd in the Central. I don't see them finishing lower than 3rd, but I don't see them winning more than 75 games. I think Minnesota's going to win it. I think Cleveland finishes second. Detroit finishes third. Chicago buried themselves too much in April to be able to be a factor this year, and that's fine by me. And Kansas City, of course, is Kansas City. Played Detroit tough in the 3 games that they played them in, as they always do, but I really feel like Kansas City is not getting out of 5th place. And I honestly don't think Chicago's getting out of 4th. I think Chicago's too far back and they're too inconsistent. So with that, that's this week's podcast. If you want to get in touch with the show, you can. We've got our Mastodon account back. It is tbpodcast at tweescake.social. You can also get us on Twitter at Podcast Tigers. You can also get us via email, tigersbaseballpodcast@gmail.com. It's the world's longest email address. I'm proud of that. Catch us on YouTube, youtube.com/@TBPodcast. If you're listening to the podcast via Spotify or Stitcher or Apple Podcast or Google Play, something like that, catch our YouTube channel. Go ahead and like it, subscribe to it, and we'll thank you for it by thanking you. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and catch you guys later. We're going to try for next week sometime, and we'll see what we can get into. Detroit's got 3 against Chicago, then 3 against Philly this week. We'll see where things go from there. Thanks for listening. Go Tigers.